The officers' club buzzed with Friday evening energy. Young Marines laughed over drinks. Music played low in the background. Captain Derek Hayes leaned against the bar. He held a beer. His dress blues were crisp and new. He was 28 years old. He had been promoted 3 months ago. Everyone knew his name. Everyone respected his rank. He liked that feeling. Across the room sat an old man. He wore faded jeans and a worn leather jacket. His hair was white. His face was deeply lined. He sat alone at a corner table. A cup of coffee sat untouched in front of him. "Who invited Grandpa?" one lieutenant said quietly. The group laughed, not loudly, just enough. Captain Hayes looked over. The old man did not seem to notice. Or maybe he chose not to. His eyes stayed forward. His hands rested flat on the table. "Probably someone's uncle," another Marine said. "Or a wannabe." "Maybe he got lost," Hayes said. The others laughed again. Hayes felt confident. He felt powerful. He had just returned from 6 months overseas. He had led missions. He had earned medals. He knew what real service looked like. The old man stood up. He walked slowly toward the bar. His steps were careful. He moved like someone whose body had been through too much. When he reached the counter, he ordered water. Hayes turned to face him. "Excuse me, sir," he said. His tone was polite, but something underneath was not. "This club is for active duty and veterans. Are you checked in?" The old man looked at him. His eyes were gray, they were calm. "I was invited," he said quietly. "By who?" Hayes asked. "Colonel Brennan." Hayes hesitated. Colonel Brennan was the base commander. Why would the colonel invite this old man? It did not make sense. "And what did you serve as?" Hayes asked. He smiled slightly. "Supply clerk, admin." The old man did not answer right away. He picked up his water. He took a small sip. Then he set it down carefully. "I served where I was needed," he said. The other Marines watched now. They sensed something happening. Hayes felt their eyes on him. He could not back down. "Every Marine has a call sign," Hayes said. "What was yours?" The room grew quieter. Someone turned down the music. The old man looked at Hayes for a long moment. His expression did not change. "Iron Viper," he said. The words hung in the air. Hayes felt his smile freeze. His stomach dropped. He knew that name. Every Marine knew that name. It was a legend, a ghost story, a whisper in training rooms and late-night barracks talks. Iron Viper was the deadliest sniper in Marine Corps history. He had served in Vietnam. He had over 200 confirmed kills. He had operated alone behind enemy lines for weeks at a time. He had saved entire platoons. He had turned battles. He had survived missions that should have killed him 10 times over. But no one knew his real name. No one knew his face. The records were classified. The man himself had vanished after the war. Some said he died. Others said he went into hiding. Most figured he was just a legend that grew bigger than the truth. Hayes stared at the old man. The confidence drained from his face. His mouth opened, but no words came out. "You're lying," he finally said. His voice was weak. The old man did not react. He simply looked at Hayes. Then he looked past him. Colonel Brennan stood in the doorway. The colonel was a tall man with silver hair and a chest full of ribbons. He walked toward them with purpose. "Captain Hayes," the colonel said. His voice was firm. "I see you've met Master Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Millard." Hayes felt the blood leave his face. Master Gunnery Sergeant, the highest enlisted rank, a rank that demanded decades of exemplary service. "Sir," Hayes said, "I didn't." "Mr. Millard retired in 1973, the colonel continued. "He has been invited here tonight to speak with our senior staff about lessons from his service, lessons that most of us will never fully understand." The old man, Thomas Millard, said nothing. He simply picked up his water again. Hayes wanted to disappear. He wanted the floor to swallow him. Every Marine in the room was watching. Some looked angry, others looked ashamed. All of them understood what had just happened. "I apologize, sir," Hayes said to Millard. "I was out of line." Millard nodded slowly. "You were doing your job, Captain. This club should be protected. You were right to ask." But Hayes knew better. He had not been doing his job. He had been showing off. He had been cruel. He had assumed weakness where there was only quiet strength. "Why don't you tell us," the colonel said to Millard, "about Da Nang, 1968, the siege?" Millard looked uncomfortable. "That was a long time ago, Colonel." "These men should hear it," Brennan said, "from you." The room had gone completely silent now. Every conversation stopped. Every Marine turned toward Millard. He stood there for a moment. His weathered hands held the water glass. His eyes looked distant. "I was 23 years old," he began. His voice was quiet but clear. "I had been in country for 11 months. I was supposed to rotate out in 3 weeks. Hayes found himself leaning forward. Everyone did. There was something about the way Millard spoke. No drama, no pride, just simple truth. "We were pinned down," Millard said. 2 platoons, 47 men. The NVA had us surrounded on 3 sides. We had no air support, no artillery. Radio was damaged. We were supposed to hold a supply route, but intelligence was wrong. There were not 50 enemy soldiers. There were 300. Someone in the room whispered a curse. Millard did not seem to hear it. "Our lieutenant was hit in the first hour," Millard continued. "Our staff sergeant took shrapnel 10 minutes later. Command fell to a corporal who was 19 years old. Good kid, scared, like all of us." Millard paused. He took another sip of water. His hand did not shake, but Hayes saw something in his eyes, something old and deep. "I volunteered to move forward," Millard said. "Find their command post, disrupt their attack. The corporal said no, said it was suicide. I went anyway." Hayes felt his chest tighten. He knew how this worked. He knew what moving forward meant in a siege. It meant crawling through enemy territory. It meant being alone. It meant almost certain death. "I had my rifle," Millard said. 60 rounds, 1 canteen, a knife. I moved at night. Took me 4 hours to cover 800 meters. The jungle was thick. Every sound felt like thunder." The room was so quiet Hayes could hear his own heartbeat. "I found their command post at dawn," Millard said. 3 officers, a radio operator, 6 guards. They were planning a final push. They were going to overrun our position at noon. Kill everyone. I could hear them talking. They were confident they had already won." Millard stopped. His jaw tightened for the first time. Emotion crossed his face, just a flicker. Then it was gone. "I took the shot," he said. "The first officer went down," Millard continued. "The others scattered. I moved position, took the second shot, then the third. The radio operator tried to run. I stopped him. The guards fired blindly into the trees. They did not know where I was. They could not see me." Hayes listened. His beer sat forgotten on the bar. His earlier pride felt like ash in his mouth. "I stayed in that position for 6 hours," Millard said. "Every time they tried to regroup, I fired. Every time they moved supplies forward, I took out the carriers. Every time an officer stepped into view, I removed him. They could not advance. They could not retreat safely. They were trapped by one rifle, by one man they could not find." "How many?" someone asked quietly. Millard looked down at his water. 17 confirmed, that day alone. The number settled over the room like a weight. 17 men, 1 sniper, 6 hours. "By nightfall their attack fell apart," Millard said. "They withdrew, our platoons held. All 47 men survived. I made it back at 0300. The corporal cried when he saw me. He thought I was dead. Everyone did." Colonel Brennan spoke. "Master Gunnery Sergeant Millard received the Navy Cross for that action. He refused to attend the ceremony. He said he was just doing his job." Millard shifted his weight. He looked uncomfortable with the attention. "A lot of men did more," he said quietly. "A lot of men did not come home." Hayes felt something break inside his chest. This man standing before him had saved 47 lives, had faced 300 enemies alone, had been awarded the nation's second highest honor, and he stood here in faded jeans and a worn jacket. No ribbons, no medals, no pride on display. Just quiet dignity. "Sir," Hayes said, his voice cracked slightly, "I owe you an apology, a real one, what I said earlier." Millard raised a hand gently. "You did not know, Captain. That is not your fault." "I should not have assumed," Hayes said. "I should not have spoken that way." "Maybe," Millard said, "but you are young, you have time to learn." The words were not cruel, they were not meant to wound, but Hayes felt them anyway. He was 28, he thought he knew everything. He thought his 6 months overseas made him a warrior. But this man had lived through hell that Hayes could not imagine, and he did not brag, he did not demand respect, he simply existed, quietly, humbly. "Why did you disappear?" someone asked. "After the war, why did no one know who you were?" Millard was quiet for a moment. He looked toward the window. Outside, the sun was setting. Orange light filled the room. "Because I wanted to come home," he said finally. "I wanted to be a man again, not a weapon, not a story, just a man." He turned back to face the room. His gray eyes swept across the young Marines. "You all wear your uniforms with pride. That is good. That is right. But remember that the uniform is not who you are. It is what you do. When you take it off, you are still responsible for the man underneath." Hayes felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them away quickly. Around the room, other men looked down. Some nodded slowly. The lesson was clear. Service was not about glory. It was not about recognition. It was about duty, about sacrifice, about doing what needed to be done and then going home. "I worked construction for 30 years, Millard said. "I raised 2 daughters. I buried my wife 5 years ago. I have 4 grandchildren. That is my life now. That is what matters." "Do you ever regret it?" a lieutenant asked. "The silence, not being recognized." Millard smiled slightly. It was the first smile Hayes had seen from him. "Son," he said, "the men I saved know who I am. The families who got their fathers and brothers back know what happened. That is enough recognition for any man." Colonel Brennan put his hand on Millard's shoulder. "Thomas has agreed to speak with our sniper teams tomorrow, share some tactical knowledge. But tonight, he is here as our guest, as our brother. I expect him to be treated with the respect he has earned." The colonel looked directly at Hayes. The message was clear. "Yes, sir," Hayes said. "Absolutely, sir." The tension broke slowly. Marines began moving again. Conversations resumed. But everything felt different now. The energy had shifted. Men looked at Millard with new eyes. Some approached cautiously to introduce themselves. Others kept their distance out of respect. Hayes stayed at the bar. He watched Millard speak quietly with a young corporal. The kid looked nervous. Millard listened patiently. He answered questions. He did not lecture. He did not boast. He simply shared what he knew. After a while, Millard walked back to the bar. He stood next to Hayes. They did not speak for a moment. "I really am sorry," Hayes said finally. Millard nodded. "I know you are, Captain. That means something." "How do you do it?" Hayes asked. "Stay humble after everything." Millard considered the question. "I saw what pride does to men in combat. It gets them killed. It gets others killed. Humility keeps you alive, keeps you focused. I learned that early. I never forgot it." "I thought I knew what service meant," Hayes said quietly. "I thought my deployment made me experienced, made me wise." "It did," Millard said. "Every deployment teaches you something. But experience is not the same as wisdom. Wisdom comes from what you do with the experience, how you carry it, how you treat others because of it." Hayes absorbed the words. They settled deep in his chest. He thought about all the times he had flaunted his rank, all the times he had assumed he was better than others, all the times he had judged without knowing. "What should I do differently?" Hayes asked. Millard looked at him, really looked at him. Lead with respect, Captain, not with authority. Authority is given by rank. Respect is earned by character. Men will follow authority because they must. They will follow respect because they want to. Yes, sir, Hayes said. He meant it. Millard finished his water. He set the glass down gently. I should go. It is getting late. Old men need their rest. Will you really be here tomorrow? Hayes asked. For the sniper briefing. I will, Millard said. 0800 range 4. I would like to attend, Hayes said, if that is allowed. Millard studied him for a moment, then he nodded. You are welcome, Captain. Bring an open mind. I will, sir. Millard turned to leave. He walked slowly toward the door. His steps were careful. His back was straight despite his age. As he reached the exit, he paused. He looked back at the room, at all the young Marines, at the future of the Corps he had served so long ago. Then he was gone. Hayes stood at the bar for a long time after. The other Marines eventually approached him. No one mocked him. No one made jokes. They all understood what had happened. They had all learned something tonight. You okay? One lieutenant asked. Hayes nodded slowly. Yeah, I think so. That was intense. It was necessary, Hayes said. He meant it. He had been humbled. He had been taught, not through anger or punishment, but through example, through the quiet power of a man who had nothing to prove and everything to teach. The next morning, Hayes arrived at Range 4 at 0730. He was early. He wanted to be. Millard was already there. He sat on a bench near the firing line. He held a rifle case in his lap. Good morning, Captain, Millard said. Good morning, sir. Millard opened the case. Inside was an old M40 sniper rifle. The wood was worn, the metal showed age, but the weapon was immaculate, cared for, loved. This was mine, Millard said quietly. In Vietnam, I kept it when I retired. They let me, as a courtesy. Hayes stared at the rifle. This weapon had changed battles, had saved lives, had made history. I do not fire it anymore, Millard said. My eyes are not what they were. My hands shake sometimes, but I remember every shot, every moment, every face. Does it haunt you? Hayes asked carefully. Millard looked at him. Every day, Captain, every single day, that is the cost. That is what we carry, not pride, not glory, the weight of what we did, the memory of what we took. Even when it was necessary, even when it saved others, we still carry it. Hayes understood then, truly understood. Service was not romantic. It was not a story for glory. It was sacrifice, real sacrifice, the kind that stayed with you forever. Other Marines arrived. Sniper teams, scout specialists, they gathered around Millard. He spoke to them for 3 hours. He taught them fieldcraft, patience, discipline, the mental weight of the trigger, the responsibility of the shot. He did not teach them how to kill. He taught them how to carry what comes after. When the session ended, the Marines thanked him. They shook his hand. Some had tears in their eyes. They had learned more than tactics. They had learned what it meant to be a warrior, a protector, a man who serves and then goes home. Hayes walked Millard to his truck. It was an old Ford, faded blue paint, rust on the wheel wells. Thank you, sir, Hayes said, for everything. Millard nodded. Be a good leader, Captain. Your men deserve that. I will try. That is all any of us can do. Millard climbed into his truck. He started the engine. It rumbled to life. Hayes stepped back. He saluted. Millard returned the salute slowly, deliberately, with respect. Then he drove away. Hayes stood in the parking lot for a long time. He thought about call signs and ranks, about pride and humility, about the difference between being recognized and being respected. He thought about Iron Viper, a legend who wanted nothing more than to be a man. And Hayes understood finally what true service looked like. It was not loud. It was not flashy. It was quiet strength. It was doing what needed to be done and then going home. It was carrying the weight without complaint. It was teaching the next generation not through orders but through example. That night Hayes removed his medals from their display case. He put them in a drawer, not out of shame, but out of understanding. The medals did not define him. His character did. His actions did. His respect for others did. He thought of Millard often after that. Whenever he felt pride rising too high, whenever he felt tempted to judge, whenever he forgot what service really meant. He never saw Millard again. The old man returned to his quiet life, his construction work, his grandchildren, his memories. But his lesson remained. In Hayes, in every Marine who heard him speak that day, in every person who learned that true strength is silent, that real heroes do not need recognition. They just need to know they did their duty. They saved lives. They came home. And they carried the weight with dignity. And moral true honor needs no audience. The greatest warriors are often the quietest. Respect is earned through character, not displayed through pride. Service is about sacrifice, not recognition.